Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll start the webinar. A few of us are not yet here, but we'll start anyway, and they'll join us a little bit later. My name is Michael Chaimovich. I'm Director of Product Marketing with Brittanica Knowledge Systems. Brittanica Knowledge Systems is the provider of Fox training management system. We're gathered here today to discuss key insights from FSANA conference. FSANA conference took place in Las Vegas about a month ago. It was really a great event. Many people from all around the industry, flight school owners, instructors, providers of various products and services to the flight school industry, regional airlines, representatives, and many others were there. We had some great sessions. Many people spoke, many people shared information. They discussed the challenges that they see and the best practices that they use. It was really a great event. I do not aspire to cover all the topics that were covered in the conference, but I do think that some of the key messages that were brought up will be shared in this session. Without further ado, let's see what we have. So what's on the agenda? I'll start with a few words about the Brittanica Knowledge Systems and Fox for flight schools, which is the version of Fox for the flight school segment. Then we'll discuss several market trends, such as the shortage of manpower across the industry, airplanes prices are on the rise, the usage of simulators, a few words about training management system trends, and of course the elephant in the room, the possibilities or the possible implications of COVID-19. And we'll end with a Q&A session. Yes, that's the last part of the webinar. But if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to send them as we go. I'll see the list when we finish, and I'll be happy to answer each and every one of your questions. So just fire away, and we'll get to that at the end of the session. A few words about us. Brittanica Knowledge System has over a decade of experience in aviation training management systems. We have customers across America, Europe, and Asia. We're trusted by aviation and aerospace key players. We have offices in Dallas, Chicago, and we have a representative in Seattle, as well as a large product and R&D team in Tel Aviv. We are privately held by the ownership of Encyclopedia Britannica, hence the name. But for all those of you who are missing those big books, they knew as children, then I can relate to that. But I can't help you with this since we're a different separated company. I'll talk to you a little bit about our partners, not about all of them, but this is more in order to show you our journey in the aviation segment. And we started it from the giants, from the top. Companies such as NASA, Boeing, American Airlines, and United Airlines were among our first customers, and it really shaped the way the system was built and developed. These are huge organizations, of course. They are very complicated, very demanding training operations, and they looked for a software that will enable them to manage and optimize those training operations. So we started with them, we built the system, and then we expanded with time. We expanded towards training providers in the fields of aviation. Then we added a few more airlines as customers. A few security and defense players came along. You can see US Army, US Air Force, Canadian Air Force, among others. And during the last year or two, we started getting calls from flight schools worldwide, that were inquiring about our software and wanted to check the possibility of implementing it in their business. Now, I'm not going to talk to you too much about our platform because this is really not the topic today. But if I have to mention a few differentiators, things that make us different in this flight school industry, TMS providers landscape, then these are the ones that I would mention. Sorry. The first one is comprehensiveness. When you work with large training operations like we do, you have to provide them with a complete solution. They're not going to be okay with, we provide these models, but not these models. So we found ourselves developing one model and then another model and then another model in order to provide them with such a complete solution. And now we provide it to you as well. Another something that makes us different is our high level of customization and configurability. NASA are not going to call me every time they need to change something in their training operations to the mission to Mars, okay? So it was very clear from the beginning that we have to provide them with a very customizable and configurable solution so that they could make the changes as they go. And as you know, training operations constantly change, and that's natural. And we needed to provide them with something that would enable them to deal with this change. Optimization is also something that was emphasized. Again, large training operations, they cost a lot of money, a lot of resource management, a lot of scheduling. And when you manage such large and expensive operations, every percentage counts. So we ended up developing some very sophisticated algorithms to enable them to do things in the most effective and efficient manner, whether it is with regards to resource management, scheduling, qualification, and so on and so forth, make things as efficient as possible. Integration was also a key. These guys were working with were using many types of software, and they really wanted Fox to be able to share information and communicate with the other softwares they use. So we've come with really many APIs that enable us to integrate with pretty much every IT system out there, and so that all the information in Fox could be exported and presented in other systems as well. That's the next thing, of course, very strong reports and analytics capabilities, a lot of information in there. This information is a key to an ever improving training operation. Everything needed to be documented, measured, calculated, analyzed, and reported to the right people. KPIs are set and decisions are made based on the information in Fox. And lastly, implementation. We want to make sure that you can use the system from day one and that you can use all the qualities and all the capabilities. And in order to do that, we provide you with an implementation bundle. We teach you how to use the system. We make sure you understand how to use it within your organization. We educate your team, and we support you later. We do everything possible so that you would make the most out of the software from day one. The entire Fox suite is available on the cloud. We have customers who are using cloud services. We have customers who prefer to use their own service. It's both are good. It's whatever works best for you guys. But you should know that it is available on the cloud as well. I'm not going to linger over each and every module. I'll just say that we have everything from training development, which is the basis for the training operation, then LMS, learning management system, which is of course important, resource management, we've mentioned, planning and scheduling, very strong model that can deal with high levels of complexity. Qualification is, of course, a major thing in the world of aviation. So we have that as well. Risk analysis, dispatch, of course, which is a key for flight schools. Grading, we provide a mobile app for grading, makes things much easier for everybody. Flight logbook, of course, which is important. Complete student tracking. You have all the documents, you have all the qualifications, you know exactly where the student is at. Integration, as we've mentioned. Finance, of course, this is very important for any business. And reports and analytics. So that was about us, and now let's delve into the key insights from FSANA conference. This is again a good opportunity to ask you to send your questions if you have any. I'll be happy to answer them later on. Just send them and we'll get to them. So one thing that really came up many times in many sessions was the shortage of manpower across the industry. Some of it is because of the basic characteristics of this industry. We have very different protocols across the industry. You have Part 61, which is not the same as Part 141, and it makes sense for most instructors and to some extent for many flight school owners to focus on one of them. Okay, but that breaks the market in a way, which means that if you're lacking Part 61 instructors, then you can't, take Part 141 instructors and use them instead. Okay, so everything is a bit broken, a bit fragmented, which of course influences your ability to manage manpower across the industry. There are also different versions of airplanes. Okay, the fact that you're allowed to instruct regarding the regular version of the airplane doesn't mean that you can instruct the marine version. So now, if a customer asks you for something like that, then you need to find the instructor that can do that, and oftentimes he will be on the other side of the United States or something like that. So these things, again, they're basic, they're structural, but still they have their impact on the business. Instructors are a key, of course. A few numbers were thrown into the air, but I think that the most common number was that there are only approximately 3,000 active instructors in the USA. It's a very limited number. Now, of course, there are many more that have the qualification, okay, but almost all instructors leave at some point for a career in commercial aviation, usually to regional airlines. And once they do, they don't really have the time and the attention to instruct in flight schools as well. Okay, so this is some kind of a movement, of a constant dynamic, which means that you hire an instructor or you train an instructor. He works for you. He gets experience, and then he leaves you. Okay, and then a new guy comes in, and this never-ending circle results in the fact that the overall number of instructors is now approximately 3,000 people. When you think about it, that's a very limited number. Another shortage is the shortage in designated pilot examiners, or DPEs. A lot of regulation there. Until recently, they were limited to specific geographies. Now they're still limited to working with specific schools and airplane models. So again, everything is fragmented, everything is structured, and it's not very flexible. That's the bottom line. And as a result, there is a severe shortage, which results in a backlog for exams and second exams in particular. A few numbers were thrown into the air. One of them I keep in mind is 2 months of a backlog, 2 months waiting list in North Texas. Okay, and I think you'll agree that's a significant period of time to wait for an exam. Now, this shortage is not supposed to go away soon. Of course, there's an asterisk here in the name of COVID-19. But still, putting that aside for the moment, we'll deal with that a little bit later. The basics of the market are there, and they're saying that many pilots from the Vietnam War area are now retiring. Young people are not drawn to aviation as in the past. This is something that is it's a well-known trend in the industry. It also bothers commercial airlines and other players in our industry. When we were kids, being a pilot was, the utmost. These days, it's still true in some groups, but not as much as it used to be. And despite low barriers to entry, new flight schools see slow growth. Okay, so the flight schools themselves are not always able to develop their own instructors. So what does it mean for you? Good question, several possible answers. Firstly, resource management and scheduling are important more than ever. When you have a limited number of instructors, you need to make the most out of them. You cannot allow scheduling errors or resource management waste or something like that. So this becomes even more important than ever. And the flight schools have learned that. One of the solutions in order to optimize the resource management and the scheduling is training management systems, of course. That's why we have a particular interest in that trend. Another thing we should keep in mind is that we have to keep the instructors happy, okay? It's not always easy, we'll get to that in a second, but if you keep them happy, then you keep them away from the commercial aviation and you keep them away from other flight schools. Another aspect that was discussed there is working with Z generation people. Now, I'll be careful with this one. Every generation has its cons and merits, and oftentimes, people look at the next generation and they see mostly the bad things. I'm not going to get into that, and I definitely don't want to generalize and say that all Z generation people are like this or like that. I'm just echoing some of the concerns that were brought up by people in the conference. Many of them, by the way, are not Z generation. And I think that there is this intergenerational tension, I would speak, and learning curve as people from the X and Y generations learn how it is to work with Z generation people. So please, take everything I say here with a grain of salt, and this is nothing personal. It was brought up very strongly, so I think it's good to mention it. So firstly, instructors are young people. Many of them are 19 to 20 years old, maybe a little bit more than that. It makes a difference when a 40 or 50-year-old flight school owner speaks to a 19 or 20-year-old instructor. Obviously, there's going to be, challenges with the communication. For many of them, it's their first real job, so they need to learn the basics, how to talk to customers, and so on and so forth. They move between schools for no particular reason, or at least not one that is clear to their flight school owner. Or they're on the phone, like everybody, and sometimes even during flights. Stories were told. They seem to forget things. They don't always show up in time, and so on and so forth. Young people are young people. It's only natural. They don't always report squawks. Basically because they forget about it or it's as important. And once they do it, they don't necessarily do it accurately. And a phrase that was mentioned there, and I just had to plug it in, is it's a drinking club with a flying problem. Now I'm laughing if you don't, even though you don't see me. So what does it mean for you? Okay, firstly, the truth has to be told. This is aviation business. Things here are very much sensitive. Lives are at stake. This is not the place or time to fool around. So we do need to keep things in order. okay? And how do we make these young people, how do we help them to keep things in order? On our side, the training management system is very useful for that in many ways. I'll just mention two of them. One of them is the grading forms. Okay, we provide grading forms that do not enable you to omit key information. Okay, so even if you were to forget things, the form will not let you proceed until you fill each and every one of those rubrics, which means at the end of the day that even if they were to forget things, they would remember them, and the information provided would be complete. Another thing is the notifications. It's very important. You know, we all have a lot of on our minds, and Fox notifications enable you to set particular notifications for particular people, and in order to make sure that nobody really forgets anything. So that was about the people. Now let's talk about the machines. Airplane prices are rising. It's important, of course. Again, a few numbers were thrown into the air, you know, but in general, prices of second-hand popular models such as Cessna and Piper and others have increased during the last several years from $20,000 approximately to the range of $50,000, even $80,000. It's partly because many airplanes are exported abroad. But at the end of the day, you know, you see a higher price, and of course, it influences your business. New types of flight schools-oriented models are developed. You know, some of them are defined as light sport aircraft, LSA, and the prices are $150K to $200K per unit. It depends. It's significant sum, any way you look at it. And again, what does it mean for you? I can only say that, again, this is a resource. You need to make sure you manage it well. You need to schedule it well. You need to optimize everything in order to make sure you reduce your expenses, in order to make sure you make the most out of your resources, you provide the highest capacity for your training operation. It's more important than ever. And again, a good training management solution is part of the answer to that need, to that problem. Simulators, well, they're currently underused. There was a very interesting discussion about it. The FDA defines a minimum number of hours as part of training, okay, 50% of the course approximately. Objectively, everybody seems to be in an agreement that flight schools could benefit from higher simulator usage. And I must say, it really makes sense. It reduces the need for additional airplane hours for weaker trainees. It increases trainees' professional level, resulting in better chances to pass the exam, and it reduces trainees' attrition. You know, if you have a slower trainee and he gets disappointed and so on and so forth, you can just send him to the simulator. He can have a few runs and become better. Simulators' advantages are clear. The basic ones, it's not sensitive to the weather, of course, and there are no safety issues. So when you look at it, you know, it really makes sense that people would use simulators, and yet that is not the case. Practically, most flight schools reach the minimum, but no more. And there are a few reasons that, you know, came to mind with regards to why. And I must say that the most relevant one seems to be that instructors just dislike simulators, since the hours are not recorded as a flight experience, okay? And that's very important to them. Now, this is where things are right now. I don't know exactly how it will change, but what it does mean for you is that you would benefit from convincing your instructors to use simulators. It's easier said than done, of course. It requires innovation, you know, thinking about all kinds of bonuses. I don't know. We should really think about it together and find a way, because the benefits are there and they're clear. A few additional market trends. Let's review them. Firstly, foreign trainees are about 50% of the market, something like that. It changes. It seemed to be high, even higher a few years ago. I think you'll all agree with me. It's a lot. It's really a lot, and they do things slightly differently. And what do I mean by that? Firstly, continuity is perceived as an advantage. Namely, when you come to the US for a limited time, okay, and you want to have the entire course, you want to go through it as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. And continuity with your instructors is part of the deal. What does it mean for you? We saw there were discussions that mentioned a need for a complete course bundle during specific dates. So you would be able to talk to your prospects, your foreign prospects, and tell them something like, okay, let's see, I'll give you a complete bundle. You'll come here between these two dates, okay? This will be your instructor, and you'll get through everything as quickly and as efficiently as possible, okay? Because your time here is limited. You can't stay here for too long, okay? So providing this type of bundle, okay, of a complete bundle for the foreign trainees, especially the ones who are sent by commercial aviation companies and things like that, is important, and we should all keep it in mind. Another thing is, again, with regards to the Z generation, it requires adaptations, and that's true not only with regards to the instructors that we've discussed, but also with regarding to the customers. Young people, they want to have their own flight lesson, and so on and so forth. One of the things that were mentioned is that you have to get back to customers as soon as possible. The ways of the past in which you could tell them, okay, contact me on this phone call, and they would call and you would get back to them, and so on and so forth. That's not working as well with Z generation people. They're very quick, they make decisions very quickly, and if you'll miss them by 2 hours, and not let alone 2 days, you might miss the opportunity, which means you need to strengthen online communication and online booking. Think about a solution that says that you can present on your website some kind of a calendar that reflects your training operation availabilities, okay? And somebody can just look at it, and he can see that there's an available slot on Thursday, let's say 10 a.m., and he can literally book it immediately. Okay, he can book it, and then everything is going forward very quickly. He doesn't have the time to change his mind, and so on and so forth. So we're discussing all kinds of ideas like that, which again are related to the training operation and to the need to know exactly what's happening with your training operation and your schedule at every minute. We are also developing all kinds of tools to support this need. And now to training management system. That's of course where we stand. This is what we provide to the market. A few things came up. There was actually a very interesting panel, and people were really speaking. It was great on my end to get all this feedback and to hear all these people speak about their needs. With regards to models, I think you can split it this way. Academies usually emphasize curriculum building. It's not that they don't care about other models, they do, but this is the model or the most important model for them. With regards to private schools, they emphasize scheduling over other models. And again, it's not that others are not important, they are, but it seems to be something that they really emphasize, scheduling. Now, both academies and private schools are still missing a few models, such as maintenance and finance, and of course integration. There were a lot of things said about the need to, make everything integrate, make the solution more comprehensive, so that it will include not only the scheduling and not only the curriculum building, but also the maintenance, the finance. It's a very important thing, especially for private schools, but also for others, and so on. So these things were like very much in demand, and there was a feeling like you know, they are not provided at the highest level at this stage. Another thing is the pricing levels and ROI, and these, I would say, vary according to the size of the flight school. You could really see the differences. The large flight schools see ROI in operational excellence. Okay, so they have the need and the funds to invest in a high level, high end, comprehensive training management system, because it makes their business more effective, it optimizes it, and they see the ROI very quickly. With regards to small flight schools, that's not so much the case. Okay, if you have only 2 airplanes, then you know it would be hard for you to justify the investment, and they usually prefer simpler apps, of course, more cost-effective apps, at least until they develop in scale and they can make the justification in the ROI case for a complete training management solution. Pricing models also change. There are pay per user and there are pay per tail. Most of the high end are based on pay per user pricing models, and most of the simpler apps are pay per tail. Okay, and now the elephant in the room, COVID-19 impact. Now, of course, you know, nobody knows exactly, and I won't solve it for all of you, not that anybody expected me to. But I really do think that, as we said when we invited you to this session, that the world has not really stopped. It's just been grounded for a while. And for us in the aviation business, we know what it means to be grounded, and we know it always goes away. Okay, I do think things will get worse before they get better. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we've seen the worst yet. It's very clear. But I think that in the longer run, in the longer term, things will get back to where they were. And why is that? Firstly, aviation is a must-have in a global world. Okay, we will not really go back, not in the long term, to being secluded villages and cities and even states and countries. This is a global world. And the COVID-19 even it tells us that very loudly. You know, it all started in China. One person went to South Korea, then a few people flew to Europe, and so on and so forth. It's a global world, and it will continue to be a global world after this recess and after this grounded period. It's also a highly regulated business, and it requires intensive training. So again, it's not like, you know, in the next quarter or two, they're going to take people and tell them, okay, now you'll be pilots. The fundamentals of this industry are there to stay, and they will require intensive training, long training that can provide the best pilots out there, because again, lives are at stake. So that was my part. I hope you enjoyed this brief review of the sessions of FSANA conference. Again, this is a reminder to send me your questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Let's see what questions we're having now. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Well, the first question here is about pricing. Pricing of training management systems. Well, it's hard to say. Okay, I can say that it really depends. It depends on the number of models that you're using. Fox is a very comprehensive system. Maybe you need all the models, maybe you don't. It all depends on the number of models that you'll need from us. The price also depends, of course, on the number of users. Okay, of course, you know, flight schools are being flight schools. We don't expect you to pay as much as the airlines and the huge training providers. You'll pay per the number of users. So that's the most accurate thing I can say about it. But if you do want to know more about your own business, you want to get an estimation, please do contact us, and we'll be happy to talk to you, both to show you a demonstration of the product and to discuss all the other aspects. Okay, another question. Let me see here. Yes. How long will it take for the market to recover? It's a very good question. Of course, I touched upon that at the end a little bit. Again, nobody really knows. That's the truth. But I believe that, again, we will see things going down, and then we'll see them going up again. And we just need to make most of the time until then. Another question, let me see. Yes, what should be done, what should we do in the meanwhile? I don't know. I'll tell you what we've done, okay? We are, of course, trying to keep close to our customers. You know, they're our asset, and you know, we want them to be happy during this period as well. In the time that you have, I think it's a very good opportunity to do all the things that you never had time to do. It sounds silly, but when you think about life before COVID-19, we were all very busy. We were all, you know, chasing our tails. And now, if there's a limited amount of activities, then, you know, don't go back to all the things that you've always wanted to do and do them. And one of them is what you're doing right now, if I may, which is to educate yourselves. Educate yourselves about the industry, about technology, about solutions, about whatever you will need, and you will need it once the storm subsides. Are there any other questions? Let's see. No more questions. So I'll just tell you, thank you very much. And if you come up with another questions, or you want to know more about Fox, or whatever comes into your mind, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can find more information on our website, and we'll be happy to have you again in our next session. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice day.